North Canton Charter Advisory Board on March 14th, 2022. The time is 5:01 p.m. I will call the roll. Member Albeck.
Here.
Member Grandjean.
Here.
Member Bogman.
Here.
Member Hostetler.
Here.
Member Feltz. And Member Young is here. Member Fettman has not joined us yet. First item on the agenda, approval of minutes from February 14th, 2022, our second meeting. Is there a motion to approve as presented? Is there a second? We're on seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. All right, before we get into our regular business, I didn't put it as its own section on the agenda this time, but if anybody from the audience would like to claim their 5 minutes and talk to us about anything on the agenda today, the podium is available. Going twice? All right. Seeing none. 4A, amendments to section 3.01 and 3.02. This was submitted by a member of the public, and their suggestion was to eliminate the director of administration and instead make the mayor a full-time employee. This would effectively change the form of government from a mayor, administrator, council to just a mayor and council. Personally, I like having a professional administrator, and I think that that is a valuable asset to the city. I think if we just had the mayor running everything, who is an elected official, there is a great risk that that person has no idea what they're doing.
I agree with you. I guess I don't understand the purpose of this amendment. Our city government is not in conflict with our revised code. Our city's running well. The police, the fire, the water, the roads, the economic development are all superior. No complaints on the survey of how North Canton government functions, and I thought that this committee was to fix things. And I don't think that this needs fixed, and if it isn't broken, don't fix it.
Then I just had one comment related to the first paragraph, just given our last meeting. This is related to the first day of city council members starting on the first day of January.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know, I guess I just wanted to bring it up. Is that something that we want? Do we want to align the first day for the mayor to align with the first day of the council? So that it would be in January as opposed to right now it's in December. So I'm agnostic, honestly, but I just wanted to bring that up since right now it would be in December and the council members would be January.
When I had legal draft the amendments from last meeting, it was my understanding we would match the mayor. So I had them write it as if we were matching the mayor as well. So, next meeting, if we decide that isn't actually, we can change it to that.
So
Any
to
other
be clear, so the next draft would in fact say January, what we just voted on.
Yes, the draft I had Krugak prepare for our next meeting when we review true drafts amendments changes the mayor's start date to January 1st as well. Any other comments on this amendment?
I would imagine that if we made the mayor a full-time job would change his pay.
It would probably have to, yes.
We don't have a mayor that's a good business person, we're in trouble.
Potentially. So. I would move that this amendment not be recommended for drafting.
So moved.
Take that as a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, our second item on the agenda today, I'm going to let Gina take the lead.
This is
For the budget, currently in the charter, it says that revenue budget will be presented by the mayor, by the finance director, and presented by the mayor by May 15th. I believe July,
June.
15th, June 15th. Ohio Revised Code, normal budget is August. Anytime after August, if the tax budget is due by August 20th to the county auditor. No way. You know what next year's revenues or expenses are going to be as far as staffing levels, as far as supplies, as far as capital purchases. A lot of the things that are seasonal, we haven't gotten through the full summer season of this year. So I'd like to just eliminate those arbitrary dates and just follow the Ohio Revised Code normal budget time and do. Our budget is passed in October and November, first, second, and third. It's usually passed before Thanksgiving, as the 34 day. And that way it's effective by January 1. So we do go through a really lengthy process this August with the tax budget and go through. And then present.
So would the paragraph just, so would this eliminate like paragraph 3 altogether, or is it just amending paragraph 3 to say to be presented in alignment with the calendar or something?
We're required to prepare the budget, so I'm not sure why it is in here as a separate requirement. Understand why it was in here to, it would work for me to just simply eliminate it unless there was another purpose that I'm not aware of.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Fetman has joined us. I think what's important about the paragraphs, or at least what we would want to keep from paragraphs, is that the mayor has to prepare the budget. And that it's the
The
mayor's
mayor
budget.
effectively does not prepare the budget. He's involved, he's included. There's lots of people included, but I don't believe he's ultimately responsible for it either. It's actually the council. The council does the appropriation. They have authority over appropriation. Except for by our charter.
So is it, I guess, looking at that paragraph 3, I mean, is it really just that very last sentence is the only thing that stays? The mayor shall be responsible for the proper execution? Is that the?
But the mayor is not understanding even how the responsibility is to the mayor.
Got it.
Council actually legally has to be.
This one's sneaking.
And I
But
feel like these were just extra steps, and I think because the election, the term started so early, it was, a month earlier than one deadline with Board of Elections. But no. And by eliminating the 2-year terms, I think that would be information you could grow into as you get elected anyway. Because even the council now is done before their term begins. Do these, but if possible, I would just suggest to eliminate those 2 paragraphs.
to Christina's point, I read the last sentence of 301.3 as like the mayor is responsible for spending money in accordance with appropriations set by council, not that he is creating the appropriation.
What you got here, it says that the mayor is responsible, but what you have here says you want to get rid of the dates. That's basically what we're trying to do, just eliminate those two dates and make it a different date
Well,
with this reach here. Remove the deadlines. That's the same about who's in charge. Just say
Schedule.
remove the deadlines.
that was the initial amendment as submitted to me. Yeah, just remove the deadlines and follow. Like, we have to have a budget to function. There's no way of
Right.
getting around.
Okay, so reading, the mayor shall be responsible for preparation of a schedule. So are we getting too stuck in the dates and like what the schedule is? I mean, is that more accurate, Gina, or does that still not even make sense from your?
No. Appropriations just have, Enterprise Code, they have a level of authority and it's, so it has to be. Legal of authority for council. So the schedule, I think,
I'm just reading what it currently says. That it's, the mayor shall be responsible for preparation of a schedule. Is of anticipated expenditures for the next succeeding fiscal year to be put into family. So I don't even know if that really means that the mayor is going to put it. I guess I'm just stopping at that very first. If the mayor shall be responsible for the preparation of the schedule. But if that doesn't fit with how things supposed to be done, I don't know, I'm trying to.
The way this reads, we just want to change the deadlines. But it says to remove the existing budget deadlines. Nothing about who has to do it or anything. Remove the existing deadlines.
in the section, 301 is the section of responsibility for the mayor, and 303 is the responsibility of the director of finance. But to Ben's statement, he's absolutely right. We can't function without, an annual budget. So I don't know that the charter is going to tell us anything above and beyond. That's what this was, give them something above and beyond.
Our revised code.
Oh, yeah. Five.
If we just go by a high revised code that covered it up. So if we don't charter, we default to a higher revised code to remove. So you just want to limit, I don't default to a higher revised.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments? Do we have any motion? I will.
I'll make to amend section 301 and 305 to remove section 3 in both of those.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, amendment number 3 for today is section 5.06, paragraph 3. This is to alter the standard for removal from office due to absence from missing 3 meetings in a row to missing 5 meetings in a calendar year. And I just want to start by addressing the question that I've been asked 4 times already. I'm not, or my understanding is that this amendment is not seeking to change the wording relating to excused versus unexcused, because there are provisions already in there for, as it reads now, is for absence without justifiable excuse from 3 consecutive meetings. It is just to change that from 3 consecutive meetings to read from 5 meetings in a calendar year. And where that 5 meetings came from is that over the past 5 years, council has had roughly an average of 50 meetings a year. So if you miss 5, you've missed 10%. of the meetings for that calendar year.
Should that be changed then to missing 10% of the meetings? I mean, if that's.
Well, but if it's January and you've already missed 5, how do we know that that's 10% of the meetings for the year?
Like the meetings already
Oh, they change all the time. They schedule new meetings when they need them or
Okay.
emergency could change. I agree. I think 5 in a calendar year is more consecutive, and it is, we're leaving without justifiable excuse in there.
Yeah.
So they're not just, I've missed 5 meetings, I've missed 5 unexcused
Yeah.
absence meetings. Okay.
And it would also still not be an automatic removal from office. This is just the threshold at which the other members of council can now consider whether or not you should be removed for excessive absence. So there is some discretion in there. Like, say you had a very sick family member and you had to take care of them and missed 5 meetings because of that. The other members of council have discretion not to remove you. Any other questions, comments? Then I will move we recommend this amendment. Is there a second? Second. Back seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Amendment 4 is paragraph or section 5.07, paragraph 2, which is referendum. This is to amend that section to add a stipulation that any power granted by this charter may be exercised through the people of the municipality through referendum. This was requested by one of our council members. Apparently there was a legal dispute in the city's past about whether or not a specific power granted to council could be exercised through referendum. And the council wants to make it clear that, yes, the people can exercise that power.
Can you give us an example?
I'll just use the historic example. So the issue in question at the time is there is a provision in this charter that says council shall have the power to set compensation of public employees. And the city passed a referendum to change some employees' compensation, and then council passed an ordinance contrary to that. And it went to the court to decide which ordinance would stand. And the court, with our current language, ruled that council's ordinance would stand over the referendum ordinance because our charter says council has that power, not the public. But our current council feels that, the public voted, council's powers from the public, so the public would have that power.
How did the people vote? How? People are represented by council who passed the ordinance. So where's the conflict?
So this was like an ordinance went to the general election ballot and was passed by the public at large.
And how did that happen without?
They did authorize it. It was a petition with enough signatures that they
Okay.
accepted and sent to the ballot.
How would it be different if council did, if they approved this, wouldn't they just pass a different, to override the prior ordinance? Resetting the wage? I'm sorry, I'm not following this. I'm making it too difficult.
Well, that's essentially, that's exactly what happened, is that council passed their own ordinance to override the referendum. And so then the court decided that yes, they could do that. But what this amendment is seeking to do is say, no, you can't override the referendum.
It's like the democracy,
Kind of, yes.
the representatives.
How did that factor in if it's an administrative decision?
I mean, ordinances, whether they're passed at referendum or by council, would trump administrative decision.
Would-
As a poli-sci idealist, I would say that my understanding of the power of referendum is for the public to overrule council if they feel council is not acting in their best interest.
I can't imagine this occurs to have procedures in place and all of the readings and the hearings and consensus. I can't imagine that this happens very often.
I can't imagine it does either. I think
apparently
this
it
only
has.
came up because it did. Yeah.
Question I have, so the way I'm reading this, if we change a bunch of things here in the charter, and the people don't agree with it, they can change it. Is that what you're trying to say? If you add this? We say make the mayor a full-time job, well, things like that. We don't. They could make a referendum on the charter, that would change.
I agree. I feel like it undermines the authority of council, like of all the legislative processes in place.
I understand that, but the way it's written, I'm
Right.
going just by how this is written.
Right.
If you want to add this stipulation, it says here, any power granted by the charter. So if we change something in the charter and the public says, oh, no, they have the right to have a referendum if we put this in.
Sounds good.
Well, the
So
public
they could-
votes
They
on,
could argue anything.
public
in the
votes
charter.
on these changes.
Well, they can
They don't need
already
a referendum.
argue anything. The specific problem that this is seeking to address is the ruling in that case was that if our charter explicitly lists a power belonging to some entity of the government. So like if our charter said only the clerk, someone in my position, is able to sign checks. And then Gina signed the check. Gina's signing is now invalidated because our charter, or that's not good.
You're not signing checks, Ben.
I'm trying to come up with a simpler one. I'm trying to come up with a simpler one. Do it this way. Let's say that we had to pass an ordinance to elect the president of council. And the public got enough signatures on a petition to get on the ballot their own ordinance to elect John president of council. And after that election happened and the public voted that yes, they did want John, let's say 80 to 20%. City council 3 weeks later passed their own ordinance trumping it saying we want Matt to be council president. The intent of this amendment was to stop that from happening. That if the public has already decided by vote of everybody, council can't 3 weeks later
What
trump.
if it's opposite? What if council passes an ordinance and then the people say, I don't like that? Take me backwards then. Can they trump council? By powers of the charter?
As it reads now, yeah.
As it reads now, we're changing.
As it reads right now. So that's part of what the 30-day waiting period for legislation is for. is that supposedly that is the time frame for people who don't like an ordinance that got passed to get enough signatures to put it on the ballot. And that legal process is common across cities, but is very rarely used.
So how did that impact an ordinance passed on an emergency? Because in the past, it was always told that you can't referendum anything passed on an emergency. But this says that you could have a referendum on any ordinance. So would that mean an emergency and the 30-day?
I have also always been told that you can't referendum things on emergencies, but
So if
it is potentially confusing because as it's written now, it does say
any,
shall have the power to approve or reject at the polls any ordinance.
so that would negate what's been in the past that you can't referendum anything to an emergency, which is 3/4 of what's passed is on emergency.
Okay. And perhaps the odds of this happening again are so astronomical that it's not worth addressing.
You could say that when there's so many ordinances passed on an emergency that nobody ever had a chance to do referendums. And maybe there'd be more referendums if the emergency thing was thrown up.
Perhaps, but that's not what we're trying to get. Again, this is designed for the referendum initiative happens before council votes, not after council votes.
So is this only speaking to initiative referendums? So initiative was
This
anything, you could referend anything that you didn't like in the government.
Yeah, look, having this discussion now, and thinking back to my conversations with those council members, I do believe it should have been initiative that they were actually talking about, not referendum. Because initiative would have been the process by which it occurred.
But this is any referendum.
The referendum paragraph does say any ordinance, yes.
Fixing everything in.
Well, it continues on to say in provisions with Constitution laws of Ohio. So if emergency is not one that can be ordinance, then that follows the laws of Ohio. I would think it's covered under that, and that's in both sections, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Maybe this should be researched and brought.
I have an even more basic question of just definitions. What does this even mean? What is an initiative? What is it? Like, what does that mean?
You need to research it more.
So an initiative is a member of the public writes an ordinance, they get enough signatures and put it on the ballot. A referendum would be city council passed an ordinance, you don't like it, you get enough signatures. It stays the enforcement of that ordinance until it either passes at the general election or fails at the general election. And a recall is you're unhappy with the performance of an elected official, so you have a,
To remove.
yeah.
So I guess for me, again, as also a citizen, you know, of the, and if I'm asking this basic question of just defining this, I don't know how we can expect, you know, the members of our city to just pick this up and just know that without it already having been defined. So this isn't really addressing the issue of how we want to amend this section 507 specifically. It's just a broader commentary and just lacking definitions, and that's so that it's clear and so that the general public can actually understand what this is even.
Okay, I read it again. I read the initiative, I read the referendum, and I'm back to, I feel like what we're saying is already defined, that they have that option, initiative or referendum, either one. But we're trying to say that council can't come back and override it. Is that what we're trying to add to this?
Yes, but more specifically, the language we were looking to add was that if there is a power enumerated, thank you for asking that question that way, that clicked, and I hope I can explain this better now. Any power enumerated in this charter can also be exercised through these two processes. So the ruling from that historic court case I referenced was essentially that because setting compensation for public officials, you and I, was an enumerated power of council, the public could not exercise it. So even though it says any ordinance or measure, the court ruled it couldn't be an ordinance or measure relating to compensation because that power was enumerated for somebody else.
So by adding language, override what the court's decision would be. We're giving the people the power to put it on the ballot
Yeah.
with 1 and 2 and 3, whatever 3 is for, recall.
The thing that I'm held up on is the by this charter versus the ordinances. You know, I think it's relating to the charter, making changes to the charter through referendum, what we're trying to do, versus ordinances that are passed by council. It would relate to the charter itself to have the power through referendum. I think it's just two different subjects that are trying to be defined. Too.
Yeah.
And, you know, the council appoint, it can get really hairy, and this is why it might be good to table this, because it's a little bit more specific to how council appoints this committee, or how this committee is defined in the charter. So that might just be need some research.
We'll move that we table until, and then hopefully bring back at next meeting with the help of legal counsel, A, definitions for initiative and referendum. B, an answer to the question of can emergency provisions fall under this? And then C, I will ask them to get with the council member who submitted this and try to write what that amendment would look like for us to review.
Yeah.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carried. All right. 5, this is to amend section 6.04 to add the words "at least" before the words "each 10th year thereafter." So, to read the first sentence, it would read, "In January 1967 and in January of at least each 10th year thereafter, council shall appoint a commission of 15 electors for a term." The intent is that it would make 10 years the minimum time they must call a charter review, but they could call full charter reviews more frequently than
It would make the 10th year the maximum.
that. Yeah, that is another way to say it, yes. I'm saying that like at a minimum every 10 years they must call one, but they can call one more often than that.
Okay,
So yes, you could also say that the maximum time between two is
Before that.
yes. So as right now, they can't call one sooner than that. So this is intending to let them do it more frequently.
We're not on the 10-year mark.
Well, the lack of an ability to call a full charter review is why we exist. I know Miriam, you had said maybe just making it 5-year period instead of at least, or is this?
You still
I like the at least. Yeah.
We can't do anything for 5 years. So put
I
it
agree.
at the maximum of so many years.
wait, can we, so, sorry, I just, we are the Charter Review Commission, correct?
We are the
Not, so what are, we? What's the, and what does the, so we are just when we make these decisions, that goes to the Charter Review? Commission? So what's the Charter Review?
There are 3 ways under Ohio law to amend our charter. First is a petition of the people to put a charter amendment on the ballot. Second is this charter review commission process that we're talking about outlined in our charter. Third is council has the power to put charter amendments on the ballot. So what council's seeking to do is use their power to put things on the ballot. But President Shroyev, back when we were first planning, this was very clear. He wanted citizen input into that process. So what we created was this sort of mini charter advisory board with the 5 of you to serve as that citizen input before council uses their power to put the charter. And then, of course, there will also be public speaks at council meetings and things like
And so when is the next?
every year ending in
Okay. So, but this 5-person advisory board meets every 2 years typically? Is that what, like, how often does this?
This is a one-off.
This is a new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Council could really have done this themselves, but they felt that there should be citizen input.
Which is good. Thank you.
You're welcome. But it sounds like we're all in favor, so I'll make a motion that we recommend.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. All right, and last one. Coming back from our last meeting, the thing we tabled and sent to the lawyers. So I did ask our legal counsel if we can get rid of the publishing in the newspaper. And they said yes, but. So there is a Ohio Supreme Court decision that if we do not publish in a newspaper and the ordinance affects a specific person or property, so the best example is be a zoning change. If we change the zoning on your house, because we didn't publish it in a newspaper, we would have to send you a copy of the ordinance and a letter explaining what that ordinance does. So you should have all had in your packets draft language written by the attorneys relating to this. I emailed you guys. I can pull it up. So this language, what it would do is remove the requirement to publish in a newspaper and instead replace it with 3 different requirements. First, that the full text of all legislation must be available on the city website within 48 hours. Second, that the titles of all recently published legislation will be posted both here at council chambers, which we're getting a bulletin board for Apple Lobby, and at the public notice bulletin board at City Hall. And third, add that stipulation that if an ordinance is passed that directly affects a specific person or property, they must be mailed a copy and a letter within 7 days after passage.
Suggest you change the 48 hours, just thinking if we have an emergency council meeting right before a 2-day holiday like Christmas, you're not going to have time to get that before 48 hours, or maybe you say the next working day. And I think that provides more direct contact to the people it affects. I think that makes more sense.
So what if we did, instead of within 48 hours, within 2 working days of final action? So then if you had a meeting, say on a Friday, by Tuesday of the week after, it has to be available on the website.
Doesn't our zoning ordinance say that you have to notify the property owner and anybody within 200 feet?
Yes, but that's,
Do we already have?
well, that's while the ordinance is being discussed, not after passage.
We'll have 2 chances. They'll get a copy that's going to be discussed, and then they'll get the deal, and here, we need to tell you about it.
Yeah. So effectively, you can get a letter saying your property zoning has been changed. Here's what changed.
You know, for why it has to be so specific as far as it's delivered by first class. As opposed to just. For those people who are ascertained. Physical. Address for I'm just trying to look for ways to keep this flexible.
Also, address in this context would refer only to physical addresses. The reason I would say to keep first class mail is to continue using our example of a zoning change. How I get people's names to tell them a zoning change is being considered is from the county auditor's ownership record. And that only gives me a mailing address. That doesn't give me an email or a phone number. The first class mail is really the only way I have to send it to an address that you told the person who is charging the property tax, this is where you can find it.
Was this written by our attorney?
Yeah.
Because they put things in there probably a reason we don't even know that there's a reason for it.
And then, like last time we talked about saying websites. Bad actor in
Way
my
that future information would have been messages to people. This attorney would tell us, so I just- it makes sense and that it. Technology changes. While still ensuring that people get the information. To them.
I think that's the thing of this third paragraph, council may by majority vote. It's, that helps.
Okay, we all happy with this? And I would move that we approve this text.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Does anybody have anything else before we adjourn?
On section 404, salaries and bonds, those are the public official bonds, as I understand them. I mean, there's other things in there too, but it refers to the first day of December. We would need to change that to January. and that should- For mayor and county.
Yeah,
And the only other question I had was 5 for contracts and purchasing, our board.
yeah. That is that. Or set, that is that greater amount established by ORC 735.05.
Which was changed a few years ago to 50,000 for competitive bidding.
Changing it according to what Ohio Code says, though.
I see what you're saying. This references 10,000 or greater amount as established by.
So if the state repealed that portion of the higher revised code, it would fall back to 1,000.
Okay.
But for drafting the term change amendments that we approved last time, I will add in there that 404 also needs to no longer say the first day of December.
To a search, find and replace for December.
Yeah.
Well, so you could just leave it, shall be fixed 30 days prior to the filing date. Or- All right, anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved. Ron seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.